Good morning, Year 10, and welcome to today's edition of the Walking Talking Mock. We're going to be looking at question 3. Okay, so what's the focus of this question? Structure. That's basically how the author has put the text together, what's going on at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Should you reread the extract before answering the question? Of course you should, this time looking for structural features. Is the question focused on just one section of the text? No, it's on the whole thing, which arguably makes it more difficult. So it's really important that you spend your time on this task. What technique should you look for question 3? Sentence structure, setting, time, the opening, perspective, shifts, the ending, character. How many marks is this question worth? It's worth 8 marks. And how many minutes you should spend on this question? 10. If you go over that, remember you've got to reclaim that on another question. Okay, so we're looking at the orange box. So question 3, it's the whole text question. You skim and scan for ideas to refer to. It's worth 8 marks. Again, it's 10 minutes, which is really hard to stick to. The timing in this question due to the need to refer to the whole text. So find one example from each section and analyse. So organise it into thirds, the beginning, the middle and the end, and that will make it a lot easier to cope with. So what's the writer focusing our attention on in the beginning? Where does it shift to in the middle? And how does it conclude? Okay, so if we are looking at the extract here, I'm not going to read this again to you because you can always pause the video and do that, or pause the PowerPoint and have a look. But you need to think about what's going on in the beginning and the middle and the end. So very much at the beginning of this, it's this sense of the building tension, the storm, the reality that they're going to have to leave their friend behind. The middle, it increasingly picks up pace and tension as they move down the mountain and the situation becomes more precarious. And then in the end, they survive. And we've got that short final sentence, Martin was there and I burst into tears, and the emotion comes in as Pete Boardman realises that he's survived, but he's left behind his partner, Martin Boyson, to die. Okay, so here's the question. So question 3, you now need to think about the whole of the source. The text is from the end of a novel. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? You could write about what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning of the source, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops, and any other structural features that interest you. So again, you will spend approximately 10 minutes on this question. Obviously, we're going to be giving you additional time as you're completing it remotely. And you must identify and comment on at least 3 structural techniques. So think the beginning, the middle and the end and the shifts between them. You're not analysing language. You shouldn't be talking about similes, metaphors, personification, adjectives, adverbs. You can talk about the writer shifts the focus to these things. The writer shifts the focus to the pathetic fallacy and why the writer shifts to that. But you shouldn't be focusing on just pathetic fallacy. Okay, so basically the writer organises the text to interest the reader, and this is the phrase that students often like to use. It makes the reader want to read on, and I say it in that silly voice because it's annoying. Don't use it ever. Okay, so the writer interests the reader by creating tension, by including a sense of danger, by putting the characters in peril, by building a sense of foreboding, by highlighting the panic, by demonstrating the confusion. All those words on there are outcomes of the structural devices used by the writer. So for example, the dramatic middle and the short sentences, a decision was needed, definitely builds a sense of tension. Okay, the final sentence, the final short sentence, definitely highlights the relief that Pete Boardman feels. So you may want to refer to this list later on. Okay, so what I would like you to do is post your ideas in the chat box. Why is this extract interesting? What does the writer zoom in on? Does this change or shift focus? How, as a reader, do you feel? What are you thinking? How has the writer made this extract interesting? What are we, the reader, left thinking or feeling at the end? So pick one of those and in one sentence tell me why you think this text is interesting. Okay, so how do you answer question 3? So first, consider what interesting means. Look back at that list. Okay, remind yourself of what interesting is in terms of the text. Reread the extract carefully. Give yourself about 5 minutes to do that. You should quickly annotate or make a list of structural features as you reread so you can easily find them when answering the question. Highlight effective structural techniques, looking at the beginning, the middle and the end and thinking about the shifts and changes in tone or perspective. And as you do that, think about why the author has chosen these structural techniques and the effect on you as the reader. So we're going to look at 2 different example answers. This is an 8-mark answer, so the top of the grade band. And this is about a girl called Zoe who is at the top of a mountain. She's enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. And then as she's skiing down, she notices too late there's an avalanche and there's a sense of panic. And then this disastrous conclusion when they've got caught up in it. So the beginning presents Zoe's state of mind, at one with the mountain and its purity, serenity and stillness. And the tone is reflective and unhurried. This is reinforced when a short dialogue introduces Jake and they both enjoy the tranquility, the silence, and the undisturbed snow. At this point, they naively feel a bond with the mountain, which appears harmless. So very much here we've got going on. What's happening at the beginning? What's the beginning reflecting? How is this shown through structural devices and what that device is telling us? However, the tone and mood soon change. So you will always find in your text that there is a shift. There is a shift of emotion, there's a shift of action, something will change. So, however, the tone and mood soon change as they start to ski. Jake hits the west side and Zoe is carving matching parallel tracks on the east so that we are taken fast-paced through the story and down the mountain. So we've very much got here that the tone has shifted and it's changed the pace. The narrative then stops abruptly as the skiers stop, concerned about a rumbling noise and what looked like grey smoke unfurling. They, and we, soon realise it was an avalanche, and at this point, although Zoe remains static, Jake is frantic and the text rapidly builds momentum until it reaches a climax. In the final line, when Zoe blacks out, we are reminded of the silence at the beginning, but now the mountain has betrayed them and it is the silence of disaster. So very much what's going on here is that this student has analysed the effect of the structure. So what the structure is telling us about the situation, okay? So you need to make sure you talk about what the writer is showing the reader. You need to use judicious quotes, whether those are short ones, and identify structural techniques. And you need to talk about the effect of the structural techniques on the reader. So what is the effect of the short dialogue? What is the effect of the short sentences? What is the effect of the changing pace? Okay, here's another. Here is our second example, and you're going to remember this one. It's one of our favourites. It's about Henry. At the beginning of the extract, the writer focuses the reader's attention on the protagonist's situation. By showing the situation before introducing the main character, instantly provokes the reader to question why this character is really buried but not dead. So again, you'll notice it talks about what's happening at the beginning, what the reader is being forced to focus on, and what effect does that have. By then following this up with a list of details that the reader would associate with being dead, including hands crossed upon his stomach and strict confinement, adds to the mystery and, like the protagonist, Henry Armstrong, the reader agrees that his current situation does suggest that he is in fact dead. However, because we are reading this knowing that Henry is also questioning this, confusion is created as he would need to be allowed to do this, creating further intrigue for the reader. Okay, so again, it talks about what's the shift, then to, and then what effect that has on the reader. So we've got at the start what the writer is showing the reader. So the writer is showing the reader at the beginning Henry's situation. We've then got a range of judicious quotes and identification of structural techniques. So at the beginning is a structural technique. We've got these short quotations, the shift to, all those are structural techniques. And then we've got the effect of the structural techniques on the reader. So this provokes the reader to question. This makes the reader associate these things with death. Confusion is created for the reader. So it's a what, how, why paragraph. What you're going to do now is you're going to head to the assignments tab on Teams and you're going to have a go at this question. You'll see that we put some sentence starters there for you, and I will also put those on your assessment piece. We're going to give you the remainder of this lesson and we'll see where we're at the end of the task. Off you go.